Most men stay poor, not because they lack money, but because they think poor. Poverty begins in the mind long before it ever touches the wallet. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago, that power is not given to the man who has, but to the man who believes he deserves to have. Yet in today's world, men have forgotten this law. They've been taught to measure their worth by the numbers in their bank account, not by the weight of their will. But here's the paradox. A man can lose everything and still remain powerful, if he refuses to see himself as powerless. Because when your perception collapses, so does your strength. When you think poor, you behave poor, and the world treats you accordingly. What you're about to learn isn't motivational fluff. It's Machiavellian strategy. It's how rulers rise from ruin, how the defeated rebuild empires, how kings are born out of ashes. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the poorest man can still think like a king, and how that mindset alone can make him unstoppable. Never think you're poor. Even when you have nothing, that's when your true power begins. From the moment a man is born, he's told that power comes from possessions, that money, luxury, and material comfort define his worth. The message is repeated so relentlessly that it becomes invisible. Advertisements don't just sell products. They sell identity. Social media doesn't just display success. It manufactures inferiority. Every image, every slogan whispers the same poison. You are nothing until you have everything. And so, men chase endlessly. They work jobs they hate, buy things they don't need, to impress people who don't care. Their sense of power becomes fragile, dependent on external validation. Take away their car, their watch, their income, and their confidence collapses. That's not wealth. That's slavery. Machiavelli saw through this illusion long before the modern world perfected it. In The Prince, he wrote that rulers keep their thrones not through gold, but through perception, through aura. Because power, like respect, is psychological currency. The moment you appear weak or needy, people withdraw their loyalty. But when you project authority, even in scarcity, others bend instinctively. The tragedy of modern men is that they've replaced internal strength with external symbols. They've been trained to rent power instead of build it. And when those symbols fade, so does their sense of self. But Machiavelli would ask, if power doesn't come from wealth, then what sustains it? What gives one man command when another man, richer and louder, is ignored? The answer, the truth that kings, conquerors, and manipulators have always known, is hidden in plain sight. Because power isn't about what you hold in your hands. It's about what you hold in your mind. And once you grasp that, money becomes irrelevant. Machiavelli never saw power as something you own. He saw it as something you project. In The Prince, he wrote that men judge more by the eye than by the hand. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. That single line reveals everything. Power is not built on resources, it's built on perception. And the man who controls perception controls the world. A ruler who loses his fortune but maintains his presence is still feared. A man stripped of everything, but his composure still commands attention. Why? Because human nature is simple. People believe what they see, not what is true. They obey confidence, not neediness. They follow those who seem certain, even when that certainty is an illusion. This is why even the poorest man can wield influence if he refuses to appear desperate. Desperation is the scent of weakness, and the world hunts it. Machiavelli understood that survival in politics, just like survival in life, depends on emotional control. The ability to remain calm under pressure, to stay silent when provoked, to appear in command even when chaos surrounds you. That's real wealth. When a man speaks little but moves deliberately, people assume he knows more than he reveals. When he doesn't beg for respect, it's given to him freely. This illusion of abundance, born not from possessions but from posture, is the foundation of all authority. The world mirrors back to you the image you project. This is the Machiavellian reality. Power begins inside the mind. Money, status, reputation, they all follow perception. Appear rich in spirit, and people will treat you as valuable. Appear uncertain, and even riches won't save you. But Machiavelli went deeper. He discovered the law that divides the rulers from the ruled, a truth so subtle, yet so dangerous, that it can turn even a man with nothing into someone untouchable. And once you understand that law, you'll never look at power the same way again. Here lies the law that Machiavelli hinted at, but never spoke directly. The rule that decides who commands and who obeys. You become what you appear to be. Power, like faith, depends on belief, and belief begins with appearance. If you appear weak, the world will confirm your weakness. If you appear confident, composed, and unshaken, the world will find reasons to believe in your strength. The moment you act poor, you invite pity, and pity is the death of respect. The man who says, "I can't afford it," trains others to see him as incapable. But the man who carries himself with quiet certainty, even in scarcity, forces others to question their own assumptions. History is full of men who understood this. Think of Julius Caesar, once bankrupt, humiliated by debt, yet walking through Rome with the calm of a man born to rule. His enemies mocked him. His allies doubted him. But he acted like destiny was already his, and in time, it became true. Or Winston Churchill, cast out of power, ridiculed by Parliament, living in political exile, yet he never behaved like a defeated man. When war came, Britain turned back to the one man who never lost composure, even when he had lost everything else. In every era, the same law applies. Power gravitates toward conviction. People don't follow wealth, they follow certainty. They follow the man who acts like he already owns what others are still begging for. Because confidence, when consistent, eventually manufactures reality. Appear capable long enough, and people will hand you the means to prove it. This is why acting poor, in speech, posture, or energy, is a form of self-betrayal. It teaches others to treat you as lesser. It tells the world that your value is negotiable. But when you stand tall in the midst of nothing, when your silence feels like authority instead of fear, the world adjusts to your frame. That's when respect arrives, opportunity follows, and fortune starts to bend in your direction. Machiavelli knew. The throne doesn't belong to the man with the most resources. It belongs to the man who looks most ready to sit on it. So the question becomes, if power begins in appearance, and appearance begins in belief, then how does a man think rich when he owns nothing? Because mastering that mindset is the beginning of every empire. Modern society has perfected a new kind of slavery, not of chains, but of comparison. Men no longer measure their lives by what they've built, but by what they see others display. The endless scroll of social media parades rented wealth and borrowed confidence, conditioning men to feel inadequate before they've even begun. They chase an illusion that keeps moving, a finish line designed to stay out of reach. This is the new poverty, not of money, but of mind. Debt is no longer just financial, it's psychological. Men owe validation to strangers, approval to peers, attention to algorithms. They live in quiet despair, working harder not to rise, but to appear like they already have. Every purchase, every post, every upgrade is an attempt to buy back a sense of worth that was stolen by comparison. This poverty mindset kills ambition. It breeds resentment instead of discipline. The man trapped in it spends his time envying others, explaining his failures, and waiting for fairness. But the world doesn't run on fairness, it runs on force. And this is where Machiavelli's brutal wisdom cuts through the noise. Don't complain. Calculate. A poor man complains about the system. A powerful man studies it, exploits its cracks, and uses it to climb. Scarcity, to him, is not a curse, it's information. Every weakness is a map, every limitation a lesson. Where the weak see injustice, the strong see opportunity. Machiavelli would call it realism, the refusal to waste energy on emotions that yield no advantage. Because while most men drown in envy, the Machiavellian man turns his hunger into strategy. He knows that perception can be weaponized, effort can be leveraged, and scarcity can sharpen the mind like a blade. This is where the transformation begins, when you stop mourning what you lack and start mastering what you can control. Because once you adopt Machiavelli's lens, you stop asking, "Why don't I have enough?" and start asking, "How can I make even this serve my ambition?" And that question changes everything. Here is where the shift happens. The moment a man stops thinking like a beggar and starts thinking like a ruler. Machiavelli would call it a rebirth, the death of the powerless self and the awakening of the strategist within. Because no matter how little you own, you can always control how you carry yourself. And that, he believed, is the seed of all power. The first step is control your appearance. Not luxury, discipline. Dress with intention, not desperation. Keep yourself sharp, clean, composed. The poor man dresses to prove something. The powerful man dresses to confirm what he already knows. Speak slowly, move deliberately. Never fidget, never rush. Even silence can command attention when it's owned with confidence. Second, refuse the language of victims. Every time you say, "I can't," you reaffirm weakness. Every time you call yourself broke, you feed the illusion that your value is measured in currency. Replace complaint with calculation. Instead of saying, "I can't afford it," say, "It's not a priority yet." Words are not harmless. They are spells that define your frame. Third, move with calm. Scarcity panics. Abundance waits. When you rush, you signal desperation. When you're still, people assume you have options. And power always belongs to the man with options, even when he's still earning them. Finally, invest in influence and respect first. Wealth will follow. Machiavelli knew that alliances, reputation, and presence create opportunities that money can't buy. When others respect your composure, they offer you doors that frantic men never see. This transformation isn't loud. It's not about fake confidence or pretending to be rich. It's about reclaiming your frame, knowing that perception creates leverage, and leverage creates outcomes. The moment you stop thinking poor, your power begins. Because a man who masters himself, his words, his image, his emotions, is never truly poor again. He may lack money today, but he walks with the bearing of a man destined to command it tomorrow. And from that moment forward, he's no longer waiting for wealth. He's becoming it. Most men fear scarcity, but Machiavelli's true students see it as the ultimate weapon. When you have little, you are unburdened. You can take risks the rich man won't. You can move without permission. You can speak without fear of losing favor, because you have nothing left to protect. That's not weakness. That's dangerous freedom. A man with nothing is unpredictable. He's lean, alert, and sharp, forced by necessity to rely on wit, not comfort. History has always feared such men. Empires collapse not from the attacks of the wealthy, but from the rise of those who have nothing to lose. They are unchained by fear, and fear is what keeps most men obedient. Contrast this with the comfortable man. He's surrounded by luxury, but suffocated by it. Every possession becomes a prison, every success a source of anxiety. He measures his life by what he can't risk losing. The poor man sleeps deeply because he has nothing to guard. The rich man lies awake protecting his illusions. That's why comfort breeds caution, and caution kills greatness. There's a reason Machiavelli warned rulers to avoid dependence on fortune. Comfort dulls the blade. Scarcity sharpens it. When you're stripped bare, financially, socially, emotionally, you're forced to rebuild your power from pure principle. Every action becomes deliberate. Every decision calculated. You begin to operate from strength, not habit. Think of the warrior who's been exiled, betrayed, and left with nothing but resolve. He doesn't beg to return, he rebuilds. He moves through life with a kind of calm fury, untouched by panic or pride. Each loss becomes fuel. Each rejection, redirection. He's no longer motivated by approval or fear of failure. He's already met failure and survived it. That's where the true transformation happens. When a man realizes that his worth doesn't shrink with his possessions. He stops seeking safety in things and begins finding it in himself. Scarcity becomes his training ground, the fire that tempers his will into iron. Because the man who owns nothing cannot be threatened with loss. He's free to act without hesitation, to speak without trembling, to take what others are too afraid to reach for. The world bends to men like that, not because they have power, but because they are power. The man who owns nothing, but fears nothing, owns himself completely. Poverty isn't measured in coins, it's measured in mindset. The man who sees himself as powerless will stay that way, no matter what fills his pockets. But the man who learns to command his own perception, who thinks, moves, and speaks with quiet authority, even in scarcity, he becomes untouchable. Machiavelli's hidden truth is simple. Power begins the moment you stop begging for it. The poor man waits for permission. The ruler grants it to himself. Once you stop thinking like a victim, once you stop seeing yourself as less, the world's hierarchy shifts around you. People treat you as you treat yourself. This is your transformation, from material poverty to mental sovereignty. You don't need to prove, chase, or convince. You need only decide who you are and act accordingly. Every calm silence, every confident movement, every refusal to kneel, they announce your return to power louder than words ever could dot. So stop thinking like a beggar. Start walking like a king. Even if you own nothing today, carry yourself as if everything you touch bears your signature. Because eventually, it will. Most men will never understand this law. They'll spend their lives trading freedom for comfort, begging for validation instead of commanding respect. But not you. Now you know the truth Machiavelli reserved for rulers. The world bends not to the rich, but to the man who refuses to kneel.